On a remote agricultural world under Unzon control, 3 human cadets arrive for what they believe is advanced military training. Their commanding officer, Commander Orlo, sees them only as troublesome Deathworlders, to be humbled through grueling manual labor. Beyond the sprawling fields, an ancient warship rests half buried in the soil, a relic of the Cadian Wars, long declared beyond repair by the best engineers in the galaxy. It is off-limits, guarded by law and tradition, and believed to be as dead as the centuries-old battle it last fought. But the humans are not easily humbled. Their stubborn endurance, resourcefulness, and unpredictable thinking soon unsettle Orlo's expectations. What begins as a tedious agricultural exercise becomes something far more dangerous, as the cadets uncover the warship's secrets. When ancient engines roar to life, Orlo is forced to confront the truth: the humans have done the impossible. And their destination is the one place no Unzon dares to go, the Red Moon, home to the Anan, apex predators with terrifying psionic power. The fragile balance between species is about to shatter, and Orlo may be the only one standing between uneasy peace and interstellar disaster. The morning sun spilled gold over the fields, glinting off the scales of Commander Orlo as he stood in rigid posture. Around him stretched a perfect grid of cultivated land, jade gourds with swirling green veins, bronze-flecked cinderthorn blooms, and the dangerous fong fruit with its silver hide and hidden blades. Agricultural drones floated above the rows, their soft hum blending with the warm breeze. Beyond the eastern perimeter, casting a long shadow over the soil, loomed the ancient Cadian warship. Its hull was scarred and gouged, half sunk in the earth, yet its shape carried the unmistakable presence of a predator frozen in time. No one had set foot inside for centuries. It was dead metal, or so Orlo believed. He turned his attention to the 3 human cadets standing before him. They looked impossibly soft compared to any Unzon soldier. No scales, no natural armor, no claws, only pale skin, cloth uniforms, and eyes that gave away far too much. Yet their posture was military perfect, back straight, eyes forward. The tallest, Cadet Jacob, had close-cropped black hair and shoulders like steel beams. Ethan, darker-skinned and broad-shouldered, already glistened with sweat from the planet's heavy air. Lucas, pale and freckled, shifted his weight as though resisting the urge to speak out of turn. This, Orlo began, his deep voice carrying across the open field, is Military Training Station 7. You will conduct yourselves according to Unzon discipline at all times. Ethan's gaze slid toward the ancient warship. Sir, is it true no one has been inside that ship for hundreds of years? It is off-limits, Orlo snapped, his throat frill twitching in annoyance. Your training does not concern it. Jacob's eyes moved to the red moon that hung swollen in the sky above them. And the red moon, sir? Is it true the Anan can lift tanks with their minds? They could crush your primitive ape brains without effort, Orlo said coldly. The only reason they allow us to share this system is an act of mercy. Do not mistake their restraint for weakness. The humans fell silent. Orlo gestured toward a squat, prefabricated building near the field's edge. Your quarters have been prepared to human specifications. You will begin training immediately. He led them across the neat rows until they reached the first task, harvesting fong fruit. The silver-skinned orbs glinted under the sun, each marked with ridges sharp enough to cut through flesh. He made no mention of protective gloves, a lesson, he thought, best learned the hard way. Ethan reached for one, bare-handed, only for Jacob to grab his wrist. Without a word, Jacob pointed to the gloves strapped to their belts. Within moments, all 3 humans were equipped and working. Orlo waited for the clumsy fumbling that would surely follow. Instead, they moved quickly, developing a rhythm that wasted no motion. Ethan and Jacob worked as a seamless pair, while Lucas devised a method to slide his fingers beneath the ridges, lifting the fruit without damage. By midday, they had filled the collection bins, a quota Orlo had set deliberately high. He tried jade gourds next. Each one was dense and heavy, its skin capable of deflecting most cutting tools. He gave them the most primitive implements available. Again, the humans adapted. Ethan braced each gourd against his chest while Jacob sliced through the stem. Lucas rolled them away from the plants in an efficient line. The cinderthorn blooms came last, the most difficult harvest in the field. Their stems had to be severed in exactly 7 points of contact, in a precise sequence, to avoid releasing defensive spores. Orlo expected them to fail repeatedly. They solved it in hours. By the time the sun began to fall, they stood at attention before him, uniforms damp with sweat, eyes steady. Orlo struggled to find words that were neither praise nor insult. "Your performance," he said at last, "is noteworthy, though lacking refinement." "Thank you, sir," Jacob replied. "We're eager to learn your military techniques." Tomorrow, Orlo decided, they would face harder tasks. The next 3 days pushed the cadets from dawn until dusk. Rows of crops rotated. Equipment was hauled. Drones were repaired by hand. At first, the humans worked with the same energy, but small cracks began to show. Ethan's answers became clipped. Jacob's jaw was tight. Lucas stopped asking questions about Unzon traditions. Still, they completed every task with the precision of soldiers on a long march. On the 4th morning, Orlo arrived to find the assembly point empty. It was the first time they had been late. Irritation flared, then deepened into unease when their quarters were empty as well. Beds made. No signs of struggle. The cleaning unit still ran its morning cycle. He searched the fields. Nothing. The greenhouses. Storage. The fence line. Still nothing. It was midday when he noticed something different about the warship. Dust patterns had been disturbed. Soil was freshly marked near its landing struts. He approached slowly, scales rising along his neck. Panels sealed for centuries now showed signs of movement. A single access port blinked with a faint green light. "Humans," he began, ready to thunder a reprimand. The ground shuddered. A deep vibration rolled through the earth. Somewhere inside the ship, ancient engines, dead for centuries, roared to life. Orlo staggered back as jets of pressurized gas burst from the hull. Drones scattered in alarm. The ship's long frame groaned, breaking free from the soil as if shaking off the weight of centuries. Then, impossibly, it rose. Dust billowed around it. The sun glinted on metal that no living engineer had been able to replicate. Orlo's throat frill extended fully as the ship tilted, aligning itself not toward the stars, but toward the red moon. Through the bridge viewport, 3 human silhouettes stood at the controls. Lucas turned his head just enough for Orlo to see the unmistakable crispness of a salute, and the curl of a smirk. The warship's engines flared, and in seconds, it was gone. The warship shrank to a silver spark against the crimson glow of the red moon before vanishing into the upper atmosphere. The echo of its engines still rattled through the soil when Orlo finally moved, his tail lashing once in disbelief. His first thought was protocol. His second was survival, not of himself, but of the fragile balance between the Unzon Defense Force and the Inan apex predators who ruled the moon. If those humans provoked the Inan, the fallout would burn across every world in the sector. He opened a comm channel, forcing his voice into something resembling military decorum. "Superior Zerlo, I am reporting an emergency situation." The reply was slow, as if he had interrupted something trivial. "Proceed, Commander Orlo. 3 human cadets, Jacob, Ethan, and Lucas, have repaired and stolen the ancient Cadium warship on our perimeter. It is en route to the Inan colony." A pause. "Commander, how long have you been in the sun today?" Orlo's throat frill stiffened. "Sir, I know what I saw. The ship was airborne. Its weapon systems may be functional. The humans, ancient Cadium technology has been inert for centuries. Our finest engineers have failed to restart it." "You are certain of your assessment?" "I am certain enough to call this a potential diplomatic catastrophe," Orlo said. "Recommend immediate contact with the Inan Council." I recommend you visit medical, Zerlo said evenly. Heat exposure does curious things to perception. The channel closed before Orlo could protest. He tried 3 more superiors. One suggested, time away from the fields, in a tone that made Orlo's scales prickle. Another implied he should take leave for stress-related hallucinations. The last didn't even attempt politeness. By the time Orlo reached the FTL communication station, nearly 2 hours had passed. His scales itched from stress shedding. The young comm officer barely looked up as Orlo presented his authorization codes, spending 15 minutes on verification before opening a channel to the humans' fleet. The human captain who appeared on the screen had an air of relaxed confidence. He sipped from a steaming container labeled coffee. "Commander Orlo," he said. "Report." Orlo leaned toward the screen. "3 of your cadets have repaired an ancient warship and used it to invade the Inan colony. This is a breach of multiple treaties," the captain blinked slowly. "Which cadets?" "Jacob. Ethan. Lucas." "Ah," the captain said, as if that explained everything. "Those 3. He set his cup down. "That's about par for the course." Orlo's voice climbed. "Par for?" "They have stolen irreplaceable technology and are approaching a hostile psionic power. They're resourceful," the captain said mildly. "That's why we sent them to train with you. Sounds like they're showing initiative." "Initiative?" "Look, Commander, if it makes you feel better, submit your report through proper channels. We'll review it in a few hours." The screen went dark. Orlo stood in the quiet hum of the comm station, staring at his reflection. Beyond the transparent ceiling panel, the red moon drifted across the sky. Somewhere up there, 3 humans and an impossible ship were on a collision course with predators who could shred minds like paper. He returned to the fields. Without the cadets' voices, the place felt hollow. Drones whirred through their cycles. The wind stirred the crops. Orlo catalogued the shallow scars in the soil where the warship's engines had blasted away centuries of dust, destroying rows of jade gourds and cinderthorn blooms worth more than his annual pay. He had just finished marking the damage when the drones stopped. Not in unison, in confusion. Their patterns broke. Sensors rotated skyward. A vibration touched the ground, faint at first, then growing into a low thunder. Orlo turned toward the horizon just as the Cadium warship tore through the clouds. Its hull glowed red-hot from re-entry. Smoke streamed from the port engine. It banked low, too low, bleeding speed as it dropped toward the fields. "No," Orlo's voice was barely a whisper. The ship struck soil with the force of a meteor, plowing a deep trench through the eastern quarter. Crops vaporized under the heat of its skin. It came to rest tilted at an angle, steam pouring from ruptured vents. Cautious, Orlo approached, the metallic tang of scorched earth in his throat. The warship's hatch hissed open. 3 humans stepped out. Ethan's uniform jacket was missing entirely, his undershirt smudged with oil. Jacob's collar was torn and bore what looked like claw marks. Lucas. Lucas had a gold band hanging from his neck on a chain, and an expression halfway between pride and trouble. They snapped to attention, saluting crisply. "Sir," Ethan began, "we swear we didn't drink and fly." A noise from inside the ship cut him off. Light footsteps. Laughter. Orlo's scales went rigid. What was that? Lucas stepped forward, blocking the hatch. Probably, equipment settling. The laughter grew louder. Another voice joined it, a woman's, speaking the harsh, flowing syllables of Inan. The hatch opened again. She was tall, armored, and radiated danger like heat. Her 3 eyes locked on Ethan with a gaze that could have cracked steel. Her ceremonial armor, fitted to her 3-breasted form, was marked with scratches and an unfamiliar crest. A bottle of something that smelled like fermented jade gourd swung loosely from one hand. 2 more Inan women appeared behind her, armor similarly disarranged. One rested a hand on Jacob's shoulder. The other carried a makeshift string instrument and kept glancing shyly at Lucas. "Oh no," all three humans muttered at once. Orlo's throat frill extended to its widest display, a reflexive warning he could not control. "This," he said slowly, "is a direct violation of the 1,000-year agreement. No Inan is permitted on colonial soil without, technically," Lucas interrupted with the kind of casual tone that made Orlo's scales itch. "We're still on the ship's boarding ramp, which counts as Cadium territory." Section 47, subsection B. Before Orlo could unleash the reprimand building in his chest, the Inan warrior woman at Ethan's side stepped forward. Her movements were both graceful and predatory, like a blade sliding from its sheath. "You must be the commander they told me about," she said, her voice carrying the rolling cadence of her people's language, filtered through the translator on Orlo's belt. "The one who doubted them." Her gaze flicked down Orlo's frame, lingering on his frill. "It changes color when you're angry." "Beautiful." Ethan coughed into his fist. "Kara, remember what we discussed about cultural sensitivity?" Kara tilted her head. "I am being sensitive. I have not challenged him to combat." The second Inan, the one with midnight blue headcrests threaded with flowers, leaned slightly into Jacob. "I like this one. He has the hands of a builder." She traced a finger over his forearm in a way that made Orlo take a deliberate step backward. The third plucked a note on her makeshift instrument, eyes still fixed on Lucas. "This one sings well," she said softly, almost to herself. "You will all explain," Orlo said, fighting to keep his voice level. "Now. How you repaired an irreparable ship. Why you violated restricted space. And why—" A low hum began to rise in the air. Orlo knew that sound. Psionic charge. The Inan women's headcrests bristled in perfect unison, their three-pupiled eyes beginning to glow. The temperature around them seemed to drop, frost forming on the warped metal of the hatch. "Oh no," Ethan muttered, instinctively pulling Kara a step back. "What did you say to them?" Orlo demanded. "I might have used the word corrupted," he admitted. "That is not what we call a peace-building term," Lucas said. The psionic storm erupted without warning. A pressure like deep ocean crushed the air, and Orlo's feet left the ground. The world tilted as he found himself rotating slowly in midair, surrounded by crops, tools, and drones suspended in the same invisible grip. Objects spun lazily around them, a bin of fang fruit, a spade, half a drone's chassis. "Ladies." Jacob's voice cut through the swirling air, steady but firm. "Remember what we agreed on. Proportional responses." "They called us corrupted," the flower-adorned Inan protested, though her glowing eyes dimmed slightly when Jacob placed a hand on her shoulder. "They didn't mean it," Lucas said gently, easing the instrument from the third Inan's grip before it became a projectile. "Also, remember what happened the last time you tried this while drinking." Kara swayed slightly against Ethan, a hiccup escaping her lips. The psionic field flickered, and several suspended objects dropped to the ground with a series of thuds. "Maybe we should have waited until we were sober to make first contact," she murmured. Orlo's mind caught on the words. "First, contact. The Inan have been our neighbors for centuries." Ethan grinned faintly. "Yeah, but they've been watching human entertainment broadcasts for decades. Turns out they're big fans of old Earth romance dramas. Especially the ones about forbidden love between rival factions." "You're telling me," Orlo began, but the words died in his throat. "They liked the part where the lovers defy everyone's expectations," Lucas added. "And also," Jacob said with a shrug, "the part where we fixed their ship for them." "What ship?" Orlo froze, then realized the truth. "The Cadium warship belongs to them." "Belonged," Kara corrected. "It is ours again now." 3 days later, Orlo sat in the central chamber of the Unzon command complex, scales dull from exhaustion. Superior Zerlo was there, along with the human captain and several Inan representatives, including the 3 warriors from the warship, now dressed in formal battle attire that was somehow more intimidating than their armor. Zerlo rubbed his eyes. Let me be clear, the humans not only repaired an ancient warship, but they also made unauthorized contact with the Anan, the human captain interrupted cheerfully. Established, not made. They've agreed to a preliminary trade arrangement. Cultural exchange. Technology sharing. And, Zerlo said with disbelief, 3 cross-species, unions. The captain nodded. Pending final paperwork. Also, they traded enough rare earth metals to more than pay for the warship. The 1,000-year agreement, already amended, Kara said smoothly. We negotiated it ourselves. Orlo sat very still as the room filled with conversation. His carefully ordered understanding of the galaxy felt as though someone had taken it apart and rebuilt it with half the pieces missing. From the corner of his eye, he saw Ethan glance toward Kara with a look that was both defiant and protective. The galaxy, Orlo thought grimly, had just changed. And humans had been the ones to change it. The meeting dispersed slowly, leaving Orlo alone in the vast chamber. Sunlight filtered through the crystalline ceiling, catching on the edges of his scales. He sat motionless, watching the red moon through the high windows. It hung heavy and close, no longer just a distant, unsettling presence. Now it was the center of a new and unpredictable alliance, forged by 3 humans who were supposed to be under his control. He thought back to their first day in the fields, how certain he had been that the endless rows of crops would humble them. How wrong he had been. They had adapted, improvised, and succeeded at tasks he designed to break their will. Now they had gone further, mending a ship considered beyond saving and flying straight into the territory of predators his people had feared for centuries. And somehow, they'd come back alive. Not only alive, but with the predators on their side. 3 days after the meeting, Orlo received a formal summons to the Red Moon. The message was phrased as an invitation, but the accompanying orders from his superiors made it clear, refusal was not an option. The journey aboard a standard diplomatic shuttle felt shorter than it should have. The moon's crimson surface grew in the viewport until it filled the sky, its jagged mountain ridges casting long shadows across deep, alien valleys. The capital city glittered in the distance, built into the side of a black basalt cliff that rose straight from the plains like a blade. A landing pad extended from the cliff face, flanked by towering statues of Anan warriors, each holding weapons that seemed to hum faintly even in still air. Orlo disembarked to find the humans waiting. Ethan wore a formal Onzon officer's jacket over his uniform trousers, the insignia slightly mismatched but polished. Jacob stood in ceremonial posture, his arms crossed behind his back. Lucas had somehow acquired a deep red sash that matched the Anan crestwork on the landing pad. "You're late," Ethan said with mock severity. "You are under the mistaken impression I am here for you," Orlo replied. "Technically, you're here because of us," Lucas corrected. Inside the Anan Council Hall, the air was cooler, carrying the faint metallic tang of the moon's atmosphere. The architecture was both brutal and elegant, towering pillars of volcanic glass carved with sharp-edged reliefs, lit from below by pale white lamps. The council was already assembled. At the center sat the 3 Anan warriors, no longer in battle-worn armor but in ceremonial garments lined with silver thread. Their eyes followed Orlo as he entered, assessing him in the same way a predator weighs the worth of prey. Kara spoke first. "Commander Orlo. You have come to witness the signing of our agreements." "I was ordered to attend," Orlo said, careful to keep his voice even. The Anan with the midnight blue crests, the one who favored Jacob, leaned forward. "You disapprove." "I believe," Orlo said slowly, "that this is unprecedented." "Unprecedented," Kara echoed, "is what keeps the galaxy alive." She gestured toward the humans. "They understand that. They act when others hesitate. They repair what others abandon." The third Anan, the musician, spoke softly. "They remind us of what we once were." The agreements were read aloud, clauses about trade routes, shared technology, joint defense drills, and cultural exchange. Orlo's frill twitched involuntarily when he heard the section on personal unions between representatives of the Inan and the human worlds. When the last signatures were etched into the thin alloy sheets, a deep tone reverberated through the hall. An aide stepped forward, carrying a small sealed container. Kara broke the seal and removed a curved piece of black metal, a shard of the Cadium warship's original hull. She held it out to Orlo. "This is for you," she said. Orlo hesitated. "Why?" "Because without your training methods, they might not have had the skill to bring the ship back to life." Ethan grinned faintly. "Told you agricultural drills have military applications." Lucas added, "Strong hands, remember." Orlo took the shard. It was cold, heavier than it looked, and faintly magnetic against his palm. That evening, he was given a small guest chamber overlooking the city. The alien skyline burned in the light of the setting sun, jagged towers, wide bridges strung between cliffs, the glow of distant forge fires. From the balcony, Orlo could see the warship anchored in the shadow of the cliff. Its surface gleamed under the moonlight, restored to a predator's sheen. He could almost believe it was watching the city, waiting for a reason to rise again. Behind him, footsteps approached. Ethan stepped out, a sealed case under one arm. "A gift," he said, opening it to reveal a bottle of pale green liquid. "Inan moonshine. Stronger than anything on your homeworld." Kara insisted. Orlo eyed the bottle, then the human. "If this is an attempt at cultural bonding, it's an attempt at honesty," Ethan said. "We didn't plan any of this. We just saw something broken, and fixed it. And maybe in fixing it, we fixed something bigger." Orlo looked out at the city again. "Or broke something we cannot yet see." Ethan didn't disagree. The next morning dawned thin and cold, the pale sunlight catching in the frost on the landing platforms. Orlo stood on the balcony outside his quarters, watching the warship in the distance. Even in stillness, it radiated a sense of coiled potential. He wondered how many more ancient relics were scattered across the galaxy, waiting for some stubborn, reckless human to breathe life into them. A chime sounded at his door. Lucas entered first, followed by Jacob and Ethan. All three wore mixed attire, part human military uniform, part Inan ceremonial gear. They looked like soldiers halfway between two worlds. "Briefing time," Jacob said. "Kara thought you should be here." Orlo frowned. "Briefing for what?" Lucas grinned. "Joint patrol. The Council wants the warship tested in simulated combat." "Simulated?" Orlo repeated warily. Ethan shrugged. "Mostly. They want to see how she handles under fire." The warship's bridge was both alien and familiar. Cadium design was all sharp lines and deep shadows, consoles arranged in semicircles around a sunken command pit. Inan engineering had reinforced the structure, and now human modifications glowed in a different shade of light, smoother controls, jury-rigged systems running off portable generators. Kara was at the command seat, her posture relaxed but her three eyes sharp. The other two Inan warriors took stations without a word. Orlo stayed near the aft console, unwilling to admit that his pulse quickened at the thought of taking this vessel into the sky. "Systems check complete," Lucas reported. "Engines at 90%. Weapons, 82. "That's higher than they were when she fought her last battle," Kara said. Ethan's hands moved over the controls. "Bringing primary thrusters online." The vibration began in the deck plating, deep and resonant. It rolled up through Orlo's legs, into his chest. Then the warship lifted, smooth and deliberate, breaking free of the landing platform in a wash of displaced air. The simulation began high above the moon's surface. Hollow targets bloomed in the darkness, enemy silhouettes drawn from Cadium war archives. Jacob took weapons. His strikes were precise, efficient, the warship's main batteries cutting through targets with surgical bursts of energy. Ethan managed propulsion, pushing the vessel through maneuvers that defied her size. She rolled, climbed, and dove between incoming fire, the inertial dampers groaning but holding. Lucas coordinated drones, releasing them in tight formation. They darted through the simulated enemy lines, drawing fire and striking at exposed flanks. Kara stood over it all, her voice calm but commanding, issuing corrections in a tone that brooked no hesitation. Orlo found himself gripping the console, not in fear, but in something dangerously close to awe. The final target dissolved in a burst of light. Silence filled the bridge, broken only by the low hum of the engines. "Simulation complete," Kara said. "Score, 94% efficiency." "That's impossible," Orlo said before he could stop himself. "Not impossible," Jacob replied. "Just human." Ethan flashed him a grin. "And maybe a little inane." Lucas added, "Best of both worlds." Later, back on the landing platform, Orlo stood apart as the humans and Inan spoke quietly in a circle, the easy camaraderie between them impossible to ignore. The boundaries between species, boundaries that had stood for 1,000 years, were already fraying. Kara approached him. "You still doubt this alliance," she said without accusation. "I doubt many things," Orlo admitted. "But not their capability." She nodded once. "Then you understand why we will keep the warship active." "That ship could start a war," Orlo said. "It could also end one," Kara replied. That night, Orlo returned to his chamber and placed the shard of cadmium hull on the table. The black metal caught the faint glow of the city lights, reflecting a distorted image of his face. When he looked out at the skyline, the warship was there, anchored in the shadow of the cliff, but now it seemed less a threat and more a promise. A dangerous one, perhaps, but a promise nonetheless. He thought of the humans, their stubbornness, their refusal to be limited by rules written before they were born. He thought of the Inan, their pride, their dangerous beauty, their willingness to challenge fear itself. And he thought of himself, caught between them. Perhaps, he realized, this was what survival in the galaxy truly meant, not holding the line, but daring to cross it. Far above, the red moon's thin cloud slid away from the stars, revealing the infinite black beyond. Somewhere in that darkness, more impossible challenges waited. And if humans had proven anything, it was that the impossible was only the beginning.